The rain has been falling for hours, soft but unrelenting, turning the cobbled streets of the medieval town into slick ribbons of stone that glisten under the faint glow of torchlight. The night air is cold, heavy with the scent of wet earth, smoke, and the faint tang of iron from the blacksmith's forge, long since gone quiet. You walk slowly, your boots splashing through shallow puddles, your cloak clinging damply to your shoulders. In the distance, faint laughter spills into the rain, warm and alive, breaking through the steady whisper of the storm. You follow the sound until you see it, the faint golden glow of windows flickering through the mist. The sign above the door creaks as it sways in the wind, painted with a crude image of a boar and a tankard. The Boar's Rest Tavern. You push the heavy wooden door open, and at once the world changes. The cold night is left behind, replaced by a rush of warmth, noise, and the smell of roasting meat and spilled ale. The fire in the great hearth crackles and snaps, casting a soft orange glow over the crowded room. Smoke drifts lazily upward toward the thatched ceiling, where it gathers in slow, swirling clouds. Rough wooden tables fill the space, their surfaces scarred by knives and stained by years of drink. The floor is uneven, made of packed dirt and straw, and your boots sink slightly as you step forward. No one seems to notice you at first. The air is alive with chatter, laughter, and the clink of mugs. A group of merchants in damp cloaks huddle near the fire, arguing good-naturedly about the price of wool. At another table, a pair of soldiers dice for coins, their armor dulled and dented from travel. In the corner, a bard strums a worn lute, his voice low and raspy as he sings of kings and lost loves. The melody drifts gently through the room, weaving between the voices like smoke. You remove your cloak and hang it near the door, the fabric dripping steadily onto the floor. The warmth feels like a gift seeping into your bones. You make your way to the counter where the innkeeper, a broad man with red cheeks and a belly, like a barrel, wipes his hands on a rag that's long since given up on being clean. He gives you a nod without a word, pours a measure of ale from a wooden cask, and slides it across the counter. The cup is rough, carved from oak, and the ale inside it smells faintly sour but rich. You take a sip, and the taste is strange but comforting, earthy, smoky, with a hint of honey. Around you, the tavern moves with the slow, rhythmic pulse of life. The fire pops, someone laughs too loudly, the bard changes his tune. You sit on a bench near the wall, your eyes adjusting to the dimness. Shadows play across the faces of the patrons, soft and alive. The light of the fire catches on metal buckles, damp hair, half-empty mugs. It is a world of small details, of quiet endurance, of people who live by the day and rest by the fire. The innkeeper's wife moves among the tables, carrying a tray of steaming stew. The smell makes your stomach turn pleasantly, rich with herbs and something meaty and unknown. She pauses near your table, places a bowl before you, and gives you a nod that feels both polite and tired. You thank her softly, and she moves on, her skirt brushing against the floor. The stew is thick and dark, full of beans and carrots and shreds of salted pork. You eat slowly, the warmth spreading from your hands to your chest. The noise of the room becomes a steady comforta, murmur of stories of weary travelers finding momentary peace. For a moment, you close your eyes, and simply listen. You can hear the rhythm of the fire, the rise and fall of voices, the soft drip of rain against the windows. The world outside has vanished. Inside, time feels slower, thicker, as if the very air holds the weight of centuries. The bard's song changes against something slower now, a tune about a sailor who never returned. His voice is cracked but beautiful, and when he reaches the final verse, even the soldiers grow quiet. The last note lingers in the air like smoke before fading into silence. The innkeeper claps once, low and firm, and the room comes back to life. A man near the hearth tells a joke that earns a burst of laughter. Mugs are raised, and the night resumes its gentle rhythm. You glance toward the window, where the rain still falls, glimmering softly in the light. The world beyond feels impossibly distant, as though it belongs to another time. You realize then that this is what the tavern offers: not luxury, not safety, but a pause, a brief, golden moment between storms. You take another sip of ale, the firelight dancing in your cup. The bard tunes his lute again, the innkeeper's wife hums under her breath, and the rain outside keeps its patient rhythm. The world is old, the night is long, but for now, here in the warmth and smoke, everything feels exactly as it should. The fire burns lower now, its glow deepening from bright orange to a soft red that paints the tavern walls with slow, flickering shadows. The sound of the rain outside has softened to a quiet patter, like a heartbeat against the wood and thatch. Most of the travelers have settled into their cups, their laughter gentler now, their words slower and slightly slurred. The air feels thicker, heavier, with the scent of smoke, wet wool, and ale. You sit back against the rough wood of the bench, feeling the heat from the hearth against your face, the kind of warmth that seeps deep into your bones. Across the room, the bard has stopped playing. His lute rests on the floor beside him, and he leans forward over a bowl of stew, his fingers tapping lightly against the table in rhythm with the rain. The innkeeper's wife moves quietly between tables, collecting empty cups, her hair tied back with a strip of faded linen. There's something steady about her, something unbothered by the chaos of the night. Every so often, she glances toward the door, as though expecting someone who never arrives. Near the fire, a group of older men sit together, their faces etched with years of sun and labor. They speak in low tones, their words half swallowed by the noise of the room. You can just make out bits of their conversations, something about a lord's new tax, a thief caught in the market, the mill downriver that burned last winter. The talk drifts like smoke, soft and uncertain, the kind of gossip that fills nights like this across every corner of the medieval world. The bard finishes his meal and reaches for his lute again. He plucks at the strings absent-mindedly, testing the sound, and then begins a slow, almost mournful tune. The melody winds through the tavern like a sigh, curling around mugs and tired faces. A man near the door hums along softly, his voice rough and low. Someone tosses a coin toward the bard, which lands with a small clink on the table. He nods his thanks without pausing the song. The innkeeper, meanwhile, leans on the counter, polishing a cup that doesn't need polishing, his eyes scanning the room with a kind of practiced watchfulness. He's seen it, all fights, love affairs, tears, and confessions whispered into ale. Taverns like this are the quiet lungs of the world. places where stories breathe and fade into the dark. You notice a pair of travelers sitting near the window, cloaked and hooded, speaking in murmurs. One of them gestures toward a small parchment on the table. A map, perhaps. The other shakes his head. Their words are too soft to hear, but there's tension in their movements, an unease that doesn't belong to simple travelers. The innkeeper's wife glances at them once, frowning, before moving on. It's nothing unusual. Taverns have always been crossroads, where news, secrets, and strangers meet. Outside, a horse snorts and stamps its hooves, the sound barely audible through the rain. The door opens briefly, letting in a gust of cold air and a few drops of water. A young man steps inside, wrapped in a cloak too large for him, his hair plastered to his forehead. He closes the door quickly and stands just inside, blinking at the light. The innkeeper gestures him toward the fire. The boy nods, removes his wet cloak, and takes a seat on a stool, his hands trembling slightly from the cold. Someone slides him a mug, and he drinks gratefully, his shoulders slowly relaxing. For a moment, the bard's song grows louder, filling the silence around the new arrival. You find yourself watching the fire again, mesmerized by the way the flames shift and dance, how the logs collapse inward as they burn. The sound of crackling wood is soothing, steady, like an ancient language the world never forgot. The shadows on the walls move as if alive, stretching, swaying, and folding into one another. Somewhere, a dog barks softly in its sleep, curled near the hearth. You take another sip of your ale, which has grown warm, and lean back against the bench, listening to the night unfold. The older men's conversation drifts to memories of youth battles fought, women loved, friends buried. Their laughter carries a weight to it, as though every joke is a small rebellion against the years. The bard finishes his song, and for a brief moment, the tavern feels still. Then someone claps, and the sound ripples through the room, breaking the spell. More laughter follows, more mugs are raised, and the night lives again. You look toward the window and see your reflection faintly in the glass dim, wavering, almost ghostly. Beyond it, the rain continues to fall, steady and unending. You realize that no one here seems to care much for the world beyond these walls. The tavern is its own little universe, bound by warmth, firelight, and the shared rhythm of weary hearts. Time doesn't matter here. The storm could rage for days, and still they would sit, drink, and speak softly of old stories. You feel a strange peace settle over you, a kind of ancient calm. The bard tunes his lute once more. The boy by the fire begins to doze, and the innkeeper yawns, stretching his back with a groan. Somewhere in the shadows, the two travelers still whisper over their parchment, their words lost beneath the low hum of the room. The fire pops again, sending a small shower of sparks into the air, and for a moment, everything glows gold. It feels as though the whole world has narrowed to this one warm, smoky room where rain and time and memory blend together in perfect quiet. Midnight settles slowly over the tavern, like a thick velvet blanket draped across the world. The last echoes of laughter have softened into murmurs, and most of the patrons have sunk deeper into their benches, their bodies heavy with warmth and drink. The fire has burned down to a deep bed of glowing embers, their soft orange light pulsing gently through the haze of smoke that hangs in the air. Outside, The rain has faded to a drizzle, a faint whisper against the shutters. You can smell the damp wood of the walls, the cooling stew, the faint temps of ale soaked into the floorboards over countless nights like this one. A few candles still burn near the bar, their flames swaying lazily with each draft that sneaks through the cracks in the door. The innkeeper snores lightly from his chair, his chin resting against his chest, the rag still clutched loosely in his hand. Only a handful of people remain awake. The bard, still plucking at his strings in soft, uneven notes. The young traveler by the fire, staring into the embers as though trying to read some secret within them, and the pair of cloaked strangers whose map now lies folded neatly between them. You shift slightly on your bench, the wood creaking beneath you, and watch as one of the older men near the hearth clears his throat and begins to speak. His voice is rough but calm, like gravel rolled in honey. The others lean in closer, and slowly his words begin to fill the silence. He tells a story, one you can barely hear at first, but soon it grows, weaving through the room like a soft wind. It's about the road that runs through the forest north of here, a path where travelers vanish when the moon is full. He speaks of a knight who once rode that way alone, chasing a ghostly light, and of how his horse returned at dawn without its rider. The bard listens, nodding slightly, his fingers moving absently over the strings in time with the story. Every so often, someone adds a detail, a name, a rumor, a warning, and the tale takes on a life of its own. You can feel the rhythm of it, slow and soothing, like the fire's crackle. The man's voice dips lower as he describes the sound of bells in the mist, the feeling of being watched in the dark. Around the table, no one laughs now. Even the young traveler by the fire turns his head slightly, his eyes glinting in the dim light. When the old man finishes, the silence that follows feels heavy and alive. The bard breaks it gently with a single note, clear and soft, like a sigh. Then another story begins, this one lighter. A tale of a drunk farmer who swore he'd traded words with a fox who wore a crown. Laughter ripples through the room again, quiet but real, and the tension fades like mist. You take a deep breath, feeling the weight of the night settle over you. The smell of smoke and ale is comforting now, familiar. You realize that these people, these strangers, have likely told these same stories for years, perhaps generations. The words shift, change, and wander, but the heart of them remains the sharing, the warmth, the simple act of keeping the dark at bay with voices and fire. The bard sets his lute aside and begins to speak to, his voice softer than before. He tells of a castle by the sea, long abandoned, where the wind still carries the songs of lost sailors. His tone is almost a whisper, but every word feels clear, as though the walls themselves are listening. Outside, a distant rumble of thunder rolls across the hills, low and deep, like the earth exhaling. You sip the last of your ale, it's gone flat, but the taste lingers, faintly sweet. Your eyes grow heavy, lulled by the rhythm of the voices, the gentle rise and fall of human sound against the hum of the fire. Someone yawns, another coughs softly, and a dog shifts in its sleep, sighing. The bard's story drifts toward its end, fading into silence once more. No one speaks for a long moment. Then the innkeeper stirs, snorts, and wakes with a mutter, blinking at the dying fire. He grumbles something about closing soon, but his words carry no real weight. No one wants to leave. Not yet. The world outside feels cold and endless, while here, inside these smoke-darkened walls, time has stopped. You rest your chin in your hand and watch the embers pulse, each one glowing like a tiny heart. The stories linger in the air, blending together, truth and myth, laughter and fear, all of it bound by the soft music of rain. You think, for a fleeting moment, that if you close your eyes, you might wake not in your own time, but here, centuries ago, your place in this tavern eternal. A quiet voice rises near the Dorids, the young traveler. He begins to tell a story of his own, haltingly at first, then stronger. It's about a river far to the east, so wide it swallows the horizon, and a bridge that was built not by men, but by wind and prayer. His words have the strange rhythm of something half remembered, half dreamed. The bard listens with a faint smile. The old men nod in approval, and for a few minutes, the boy's voice fills the tavern with the sound of faraway places. When he finishes, the rain has stopped completely. The only sound now is the quiet sigh of cooling coals. Someone murmurs a blessing, another stretches and stands, joints creaking softly. The night is ending, though no one dares to say it aloud. You sit for a little longer, feeling the peace of the moment, the stillness that only comes after stories have been told, and silence has settled like dust. In this small, forgotten corner of history, the world feels whole again. The first light of morning creeps slowly into the tavern, soft and gray, slipping between the wooden shutters and settling in thin ribbons across the floor. The fire has burned down to a bed of faintly glowing ash, its warmth just a ghost of the night before. The air is still thick with the scent of smoke and old ale, but now another smell joins it, the fresh, faint sweetness of dawn after rain. Outside, birds begin to call, their voices distant and uncertain, as if testing whether the storm has truly gone. You stir on your bench, the stiffness in your back reminding you that the seat was never meant for sleeping. Around you, the tavern lies in quiet disarray. Mugs and bowls sit forgotten on tables. Puddles of melted candle wax cling to the wood, and a dog stretches lazily near the hearth, blinking in the new light. The innkeeper snores softly in his chair, his head tilted back, mouth open. One of the older men by the fire shifts under his cloak, mumbling in his sleep before turning over again. The bard's lute lies on the table beside him, one string broken, its wood gleaming faintly in the dawn. You stand slowly, your legs heavy, and move toward the door. Each step makes the floorboards creak in the stillness. When you lift the latch, the morning greets you with a rush of cool, damp air. The town beyond the tavern is quiet mist, clings to the roofs, and the cobblestones glisten from the night's rain. The air smells of wet stone, smoke, and bread baking somewhere unseen. You take a long breath, feeling the freshness fill your lungs. After the thick air of the tavern, the world outside feels vast and alive. A cart creaks down the street, its driver humming softly, and somewhere a blacksmith begins to stir his forge back to life. You turn back inside. The innkeeper's wife is already awake, moving quietly through the room, gathering cups into a basket. She nods at you in recognition, her eyes still heavy with sleep. But there's a calmness to her face, the kind of peace that belongs to someone who has repeated these mornings countless times. She sets a pot over the rekindled embers, and soon the scent of boiling water and herbs fills the air. "Warm drink?" she asks softly, her voice low so as not to wake the others. You nod, and she pours a steaming cup into a clay mug, the liquid dark and bitter, laced with something sweet. It's not coffee. That's centuries away. It's an herbal brew of wild mint and crushed bark, simple but soothing. You sip carefully, the warmth spreading through your chest. The sound of movement grows a cough here, a groan there. The older men wake one by one, rubbing their eyes and muttering about sore backs and strange dreams. The bard lifts his head, blinking against the light, and gives a tired smile. "Morning already," he mumbles, his voice rough. The innkeeper stirs as well, straightening in his chair with a grunt, his joints popping audibly. He looks around, nods approvingly at the state of his tavern, and says, "Another night survived." His wife gives him a small, knowing smile. She's already sweeping the floor, pushing last night's straw and dirt toward the door. Dust rises, dancing briefly in the pale sunlight before fading into the air. You watch the ordinary rhythm of morning unfold: the cleaning, the stirring of the pot, the quiet conversation between husband and wife. There is something deeply human about it, something that feels unchanged by centuries. The bard tunes his lute again, testing each string gently. The melody he plays now is softer than before, lighter, a tune made for morning. It drifts lazily through the air, mingling with the faint clatter of dishes and the low hum of voices. The young traveler from last night wakes too, stretching and rubbing his neck. He looks around, briefly startled, then smiles when he recognizes the room. "I dreamed of rain," he says, half to himself. One of the old men chuckles. "That wasn't a dream, boy. The sky wept enough for all of us." They share a small laughter kind of laugh that only comes after a long night safely passed. You finish your drink, the last drops slightly gritty from the herbs, and place the mug on the counter. The innkeeper nods to you in thanks. Outside, the mist begins to lift, revealing the gentle slopes of the town and the green fields beyond. Somewhere, a rooster crows. The innkeeper's wife opens the windows, one by one, letting in the cool air and the faint light. The tavern feels different, now emptier, but not lonely. The fire crackles again as she adds a few new logs, and the smoke rises clean and blue into the morning. The bard hums softly, the dog yawns, the travelers pull on their cloaks, and the day begins. You realize how easily the tavern shifts from night to morning, from story to silence. The world outside may be harsh and uncertain, but here, in this small wooden room, there is constancy. Every night will bring rain and laughter. Every dawn, warmth and renewal. You take one last look around the tables, the hearth, the fading embers that glow like forgotten stars, and step outside into the cool air. Behind you, the door creaks shut, and the sound of the bard's gentle music follows you down the road until it fades into the hum of the waking town. The morning stretches wider now, the sky a pale wash of silver and soft blue as the sun climbs gently above the rooftops. The air smells clean after the night's rain, cool and rich with the scent of damp earth and wood smoke. As you walk away from the tavern, the quiet rhythm of the waking town greets you, a distant hammer striking metal. the creak of wooden carts, and the faint murmur of voices carried on the breeze. The cobblestones beneath your boots glisten in the early light, their edges catching the gold of the rising sun. The tavern door closes softly behind you, its warmth fading into memory, replaced by the gentle bustle of the street. To your left, a baker slides fresh loaves from a stone oven, the crusts golden and steaming. The smell drifts through the air like a warm blanket, mingling with the faint tang of wet hay and horse sweat. A woman stands nearby with a basket, trading coins for bread, her shawl drawn tight against the morning chill. Chickens scurry at her feet, clucking softly, their feathers still damp from the rain. Across the square, merchants are unpacking their goods beneath wooden awnings, bolts of rough linen, baskets of onions, smoked fish wrapped in leaves. The clatter of barrels, the soft thud of crates, the low hum of conversation all blend into a gentle, living harmony. You walk slowly among them, watching as the town unfurls its day. Children dart between stalls, laughing, their bare feet splashing through shallow puddles. A group of monks passes by, their brown robes trailing in the mud, their voices murmuring a hymn too quiet to understand. A blacksmith's forge glows faintly at the edge of the square, its smoke curling upward like a thin gray thread against the morning sky. The rhythmic ring of hammer on metal echoes across the market, steady and comforting. Near the well, a man draws water with practiced ease, his hands rough, his motions slow and certain. The water splashes into a bucket, clear and cold, catching the light like glass. You stop to watch as he hands it to a young girl, who smiles shyly before hurrying off toward a bakery door. Every sound, every movement feels unhurried, as though the town itself understands the value of slowness. The rain has washed the dust from the walls, and even the cracked plaster of the old houses seems to glow. A dog barks, wagging its tail as a butcher tosses it. Somewhere, a rooster crows again, late but proud. The innkeeper from the Boar's Rest steps outside, wiping his hands on his apron, and waves absently to the baker across the street. Their morning exchange is wordless, a nod, a look, a shared rhythm, repeated countless times. You pass a stall selling pottery, the clay still smelling faintly of earth. The merchant, an old man with white hair and kind eyes, greets you with a nod. His hands are rough but steady as he arranges cups, bowls, and small pitchers on a wooden table. Each piece bears the marks of its making, the small imperfections that tell of hands rather than machines. From the river clay, he says softly, his voice almost lost in the hum of the crowd. Strong and clean, you nod, tracing a finger over one of the cups, feeling its cool texture. Behind him, the morning light filters through the canvas of his stall, turning everything golden. A woman nearby sells herbs, her table crowded with bundles of rosemary, thyme, and dried lavender. The scent is sharp and clean, cutting through the air. She hums quietly as she works, her song weaving between the sounds of the street. You realize that in this world, every task carries a rhythm, a music of its own. The town feels alive, but not loud, its heartbeat steady, ancient, and familiar. You stop near the edge of the square, where a small group has gathered around a storyteller. He stands on a low crate, gesturing animatedly, his cloak patched and faded, but his voice strong. He tells of knights and dragons, of rivers that flow backward, of kings who vanished into forests that never end. The people listen with smiles, not because they believe, but because belief is not the point. The story itself is Infa, shared dream under the morning sun. A few coins drop into his hand when he finishes, and he bows deeply before beginning again. You watch for a moment, then continue walking, the rhythm of your steps falling in time with the life around you. The smell of roasted meat begins to drift from a nearby tavern, and the sound of laughter spills into the street as a new day of trade begins. You glance back once toward the Boar's Rest, its sin swaying gently in the breeze, the golden light of morning catching on its edges. It looks smaller now, quieter, as though it's exhaling after a long night. You realize how easily this place balances work and rest, noise and stillness, rain and sun. You pass a narrow alley where water trickles down the stones, catching tiny reflections of the sky. A cat darts out, sleek and quick, vanishing beneath a cart. Everything here feels woven together: the baker's smoke, the forge's fire, the smell of herbs, the sound of hooves. It's a world both rough and beautiful, simple yet filled with quiet detail. You pause near the fountain in the town's center, the water spilling from a carved stone face into a basin below. Children splash their hands in it, laughing as their mothers scold them gently. You lean on the edge, letting the sound of the water fill your ears. The surface ripples softly, reflecting the pale clouds drifting overhead. For a long moment, you simply stand there, breathing, watching. The world moves, but not fast. The market hums, the sun climbs, and life continues ordinary, ancient, and endlessly alive. The road begins where the cobblestones end, their neat gray lines giving way to packed earth softened by the night's rain. Each step feels different, now less sure, less deliberate, as if the land itself is asking you to slow down. Behind you, the faint hum of the market fades into the soft murmur of distance, the clink of tools, a horse's whinny, the echo of laughter carried by the wind. Ahead lies only the quiet country road, its winding path disappearing into a thin veil of mist. The morning air is cool and damp, and the smell of wet grass mixes with the earthy scent of mud and crushed leaves. A small stream runs parallel to the path, whispering gently as it flows around stones smoothed by centuries of water. You walk beside it, your steps steady, your breath even. The sounds of the countryside begin to replace those of the town-a-crow's rough call. The rustle of branches as a squirrel darts upward, the faint creak of a distant mill. Every noise feels softer here, swallowed by the open sky. The sun climbs higher, spilling a pale gold light over the fields. Dew clings to the edges of tall grass, catching the sun like glass. You pass a wooden fence, its planks rough and weathered, where sheep graze lazily on the other side. Their soft bleats rise and fall like the rhythm of the road itself. Farther ahead, an old farmer bends to mend a section of the fence, his back curved from years of work. He glances up briefly as you pass, nodding once before returning to his task. Words aren't needed here. A shared silence is enough. The road turns gently toward the hills, where the scent of pine begins to mingle with the wind. You can see, far in the distance, the faint outline of a castle tower, its stone walls barely visible through the haze. It stands like a memory ancient, unmoved, watching over a land that changes only in small ways. The fields spread wide on both sides, dotted with wildflowers and the occasional scarecrow, their faded clothes fluttering lazily. A cart passes you, pulled by a tired-looking horse, its wheels squeaking softly in the mud. The man driving it raises a hand in greeting, his beard streaked with gray, his eyes kind but distant. He hums a tune as he goes, a simple melody that drifts back to you like a fragment of some forgotten song. You walk on. The rhythm of your boots on the damp path feels steady, almost meditative. Each step a small heartbeat in the quiet morning. Occasionally, you glance back toward the town, now a faint smudge against the horizon. The tavern's roof, the market square, the smoke rising from chimneys all fading into the soft gray distance. Ahead, the path narrows between hedges. Birds flit across your view, their wings catching the light. A rabbit darts across the road and disappears into the underbrush. The world feels smaller here, enclosed, like walking through a living tunnel of green. The smell of wild thyme drifts up from the edges of the road, sweet and sharp. You reach a small wooden bridge where the stream passes beneath. The water flows clearer here, over smooth stones that glimmer faintly in the light. You stop to watch for a moment, leaning on the rail. The current makes a soft, steady sound that seems older than words. A few leaves float past, spinning slowly before vanishing around a bend. You breathe in deeply, letting the stillness fill you. Somewhere nearby, a church bell tolls once, far enough away that it sounds like a memory instead of a moment. You begin walking again. The hills rise gently now, the road climbing between scattered trees. The air grows warmer, and the scent of pine deepens. From here, you can see patches of farmland stretching below fields in neat squares, bordered by thin lines of hedges and stone walls. Smoke curls from a lone cottage near a stream. A figure moves outside, hanging washed clothes on a line that sways in the breeze. There is a calm beauty in this world, a simplicity that feels both fragile and endless. As you walk, you begin to imagine all the travelers who must have taken this same road before you, merchants with carts of spices, messengers with sealed letters, soldiers returning home, monks whispering prayers to themselves. Their footsteps, long faded, seem to echo faintly beneath your own. The path dips into a shallow valley where the air is thick with the smell of moss and soil. The trees close in again, tall and thin, their trunks streaked with age. Sunlight filters through the leaves, painting shifting patterns on the ground. Somewhere in the shadows, a stream trickles unseen. You pause for a moment, listening to the forest's quiet breathing. It feels alive, not in the way cities are alive, but in the slow, enduring sense of something that has always been and always will be. You sit on a fallen log, brushing dew from its surface, and close your eyes. For a while, you simply listen the hum of insects, the distant murmur of wind, the quiet creak of wood as it settles. It's a silence full of sound, a calm that feels like the world itself taking a slow breath. When you finally stand again, the path ahead is lit by the soft gold of afternoon. The hills stretch onward, the horizon wide and open. The tavern is far behind now, but its warmth lingers in your memory, the glow of firelight, the low voices, the smell of ale and smoke. You realize that in some quiet way, that place, like the road itself, belongs to every traveler who's ever needed rest before moving on. The path bends once more toward the light, and you follow, unhurried, as the world unfolds in front of you, vast, gentle, and endless. By the time the traveler returns, the sun has already sunk behind the hills, leaving the world wrapped in soft shades of blue and amber. The road is darker now, the air heavier with the scent of damp earth and cooling stone. In the distance, the faint orange glow of the tavern windows shimmers through the twilight like a beacon. The Boar's Rest stands quiet but alive, its thatched roof outlined against the deepening sky. Smoke drifts lazily from its chimney, curling upward to meet the first stars. You push open the wooden door, and the world outside, the wind, the cold, the ache in your legs, melts away at once. Inside, the tavern is warm and golden. The fire crackles low in the hearth, its glow painting the walls in soft, dancing light. The same wooden beams arch above you, the same smell of ale, smoke, and roasted meat filling the air. But the feeling is different, gentler, as if the whole place has taken a deep, tired breath. The innkeeper looks up from behind the counter, gives a small nod of recognition, and slides a mug across the polished wood without a word. You take it, the cup warm against your hands, and find a seat near the fire. The bench creaks beneath you, familiar and welcoming. Around the room, small groups of travelers sit together, some talking quietly, others lost in thought. A pair of merchants share a platter of stew, their laughter rising softly between sips. A woman in a faded red cloak plays a slow tune on a lute by the corner, the notes winding through the air like threads of smoke. The melody is simple, old, and sad in a way that feels comforting. A dog sleeps near the fire, its breathing slow and even, its fur glinting in the light. You take a long drink, the ale smooth and slightly bitter, and feel its warmth spread through your chest. For a while, you simply watch the room. The way the light flickers across faces, the way the smoke curls in the air, the soft clink of mugs, and the low hum of quiet talk. Every sound feels measured, every movement unhurried, as though time itself slows down once the tavern door is closed. The innkeeper's wife moves between tables, carrying bowls of stew and loaves of bread. She hums a tune you almost recognize, something from the road, perhaps. Something passed from traveler to traveler until its words were forgotten. A boy, likely their son, sweeps the floor with slow, deliberate strokes, careful not to disturb the dog. Outside, the wind sighs against the shutters, and the rain begins, again soft, steady, and patient. The fire pops once, sending a small spray of sparks upward before settling back into its rhythm. You look toward the window. Beyond the glass, the world is dark, the shapes of the village barely visible through the rain. But here, inside, everything glows. The smell of the stew drifts closer, onions, barley, and something rich and savory. A man at the next table nods to you and offers a piece of bread, which you accept with a quiet thank you. He tells you he's come from 3 towns over, carrying a wagon load of wool. His voice is rough but kind. He speaks slowly, as though the words themselves need rest. You listen more than you speak, content just to hear the sound of another voice against the background of the rain. When his story trails off, the silence that follows feels full, not empty. The firelight dances across the walls, catching on old iron nails and the brass buckles of cloaks. The music continues softly, the lute's melody curling like smoke through the air. You close your eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of the day ease from your shoulders. The bench is hard, but it feels right, as if it's been waiting for countless travelers before you. Somewhere, someone begins to sing a low, wordless tune, a sound like a prayer meant not for gods, but for the quiet comfort of being human. The others listen without interrupting, their eyes half closed, their mugs forgotten. When the song ends, no one claps, no one speaks. There's only the faint hiss of the fire and the sound of rain tapping gently against the walls. You think about the road you walked, the market you passed, the fields still slick with morning dew. It all feels far away now, softened by the glow of the hearth. Time moves differently here. Outside, the world turns cold and dark, but in this small circle of warmth and light, the night feels endless. The innkeeper passes by once more and asks if you'll be staying the night. You nod, and he smiles faintly, as if he already knew the answer. He points toward the narrow staircase at the back of the room. You finish your drink slowly, savoring the last warmth of it. As you climb the creaking stairs, the sound of the fire fades behind you, replaced by the soft groan of wood and the whisper of rain against the roof. At the top, a small hallway stretches out, lit by a single candle. The air smells of old wood and linen. You find your door, push it open, and step inside. The room is simpler, bed of straw and wool, a small table, a pitcher of water. The window is small, but you can see the faint shimmer of the rain outside. You set your cup down and sit on the edge of the bed. The mattress creaks, the straw shifting beneath you. It's not soft, but it's enough. You pull off your boots, stretch your legs, and lie back. The ceiling beams above you fade in the dim candlelight. The sound of rain fills the silence. Somewhere below, the tavern still hums quietly, voices, fire, music all blending into a lullaby that carries you toward sleep. The night stretches long and heavy, wrapping the tavern in stillness. The last song has faded, the laughter has quieted, and even the dog by the hearth sleeps without stirring. The fire has burned low, its light no more than a faint orange pulse that flickers softly across the beams above. Upstairs, the floorboards creak faintly as the wind moves through the cracks in the walls, whispering secrets from the rain-soaked world outside. You lie in your narrow bed, the coarse wool blanket pulled up to your chin, listening to the silence. It isn't empty. This silence, it hums faintly with the slow breathing of the building, the muffled sighs of sleeping travelers, the quiet drip of rain from the roof. Each sound feels distant but real, like the heartbeat of an old friend. The smell of wood smoke lingers in the air, mixed with the faint sweetness of ale and bread. Somewhere beneath all of it is the subtle scent of earth, of old stone, of time itself pressing close. The candle on the small table has burned down to a stub, its light dimming with every flicker. The shadows move slowly across the walls, soft and gentle, like water rippling in a dark pond. You turn on your side and close your eyes. The sounds of the tavern seem to blur into something larger. The soft rush of the wind becomes the ocean. The creak of the beams becomes a distant ship rocking on the waves. For a moment, you're not sure where you are, or even when you are. It feels as if the night has folded time upon itself, wrapping the past and present together beneath the same roof. In your half-dream, you hear voices, faint but familiar. The murmur of travelers long gone, of merchants, pilgrims, and wanderers who once slept in this same bed, on this same straw, listening to the same rain. Their stories drift through your mind like smoke fragments of laughter, of prayer, of whispered plans for journeys that never ended where they began. You see flashes of faces, lit by firelight, rough hands, tired eyes, soft smiles, and you realize that this place, this tavern, holds them all, layer upon layer of memory built into its walls. The beams above you have watched centuries pass, have soaked in the songs, the tears, the warmth of countless nights, just like this one. Outside, the rain begins again, softer now, steady as a lullaby. It taps gently against the shutters, runs down the window in thin, shimmering lines. You can almost taste the freshness of it through the wood. Feel the cool breath of night pressing faintly against the warmth inside. A draft moves across your facelight, almost kindled for a second. It feels like the tavern itself sighs in its sleep. Somewhere below, a log shifts in the hearth, sending up a brief glow that touches the ceiling beams before fading again into darkness. You drift deeper. In the dream, you are back in the common room, but it's empty now, filled only with the echo of what was. The chairs are still warm from their occupants. The air still carries the faint sound of laughter, but no one is there. The fire burns steadily, but it makes no sound. You walk through the room, and each step feels both real and weightless. The world glows in tones of amber and shadow. The innkeeper stands behind the counter, but when you look closer, his face is calm and unreadable, almost like a statue. He nods once, slow and deliberate, and the sound of rain outside fades completely. There is no noise, now only the low hum of the fire and the beating of your heart. You sit by the hearth, watching the embers pulse. In their glow, you see images form and dissolve, villages rising and falling, roads turning to rivers, faces appearing and vanishing like smoke. You see the same tavern, but smaller, newer, brighter, full of voices you don't know. Then, older, darker, quieter. It changes, but it's always the same. The walls hold every story, every night, every traveler who has ever sought rest here. You reach out a hand toward the fire, and the warmth feels both near and impossibly far. When you look up again, the tavern is gone. You're outside, standing beneath a sky filled with stars so bright they seem to hum. The road stretches endlessly before you, the world silvered by moonlight. In the distance, you hear a faint sound, a song, maybe, or the whisper of wind through trees. You walk toward it, though you're not sure why. Each step feels lighter, quieter, until the sound itself becomes the road, the air, the sky. The dream folds around you, soft as the wool blanket on your bed. Then, slowly, the stars begin to dim, replaced by the faint gray of dawn. The tavern returns, the fire rekindles, the weight of the blanket returns to your shoulders. You open your eyes to the pale morning light seeping through the cracks in the shutter. The rain has stopped, leaving only the drip of water from the eaves and the smell of wet earth rising into the air. For a moment, you lie still, unsure if you've truly woken. The line between dream and morning feels too thin to tell. Downstairs, you can hear faint movement, the scrape of a chair, the low murmur of voices, the start of another day. You take a slow breath and sit up. The world feels the same, yet different, as if the night has polished it clean. You stand, stretch, and the floor creaks softly beneath your feet. Through the window, the first light of dawn glows silver on the horizon, promising warmth, promise, and the slow, steady rhythm of another day. The first light of dawn creeps slowly across the floorboards, pale and silvery, tracing the grain of the wood in long, quiet lines. It finds the edge of the bed, touches your hand, and warms it just enough to wake you. For a moment, you lie still, caught between the lingering softness of sleep and the gentle pull of morning. The tavern is still half asleep, the silence thick with the weight of spent dreams. You can hear the faint sigh of wind slipping through the shutters, the occasional groan of old timber stretching in the cool air. The smell of ash lingers from the fire below, mingling with the faint sweetness of baking bread drifting up from the kitchen. Slowly, you sit up, rubbing your eyes, the world around you blurred and hushed. The blanket slides off your shoulders, rough wool against bare skin, and the cold morning air brushes your face like the touch of an old friend. For a long moment, you simply breathe. The night is gone, but its echoes remain the dream of rain, the whisper of travelers long vanished, the warmth of a fire now reduced to quiet smoke. You stand and cross to the small window. The wooden shutter creaks as you push it open, and the chill of dawn flows in, fresh and damp. Outside, the sky is a washed-out blue, still streaked with faint traces of cloud. The rooftops glisten with dew, each tile catching the light like a tiny mirror. A rooster calls from somewhere nearby, its cry sharp and proud, breaking the stillness like a song meant for no one in particular. You rest your arms on the sill and watch as the world slowly wakes. Across the narrow lane, a woman sweeps her doorstep, the bristles of her broom whispering softly against the stone. A cart creaks by, its wheels leaving thin tracks in the wet dirt. The smell of smoke begins to rise again, faint at first, then stronger as the town's hearths come back to life. You take a deep breath, and it fills your lungs with the scent of rain-washed earth, wood, and the faint salt of bread. The tavern stirs behind you. A door creaks, footsteps move along the hall. The quiet murmur of morning voices begins. You dress slowly, each motion deliberate, the weight of the tunic, the pull of the boots, the belt's familiar tug around your waist. When you descend the narrow staircase, the steps groan beneath you, the sound somehow comforting in its age. The common room glows faintly now, the fire rekindled to life. The innkeeper moves behind the counter, stirring a pot that steams gently in the golden light. He looks up as you appear and gives a small nod, the kind that needs no words. A few travelers sit at the tables, their faces still soft with sleep, their hands wrapped around mugs of warm ale or water. No one speaks loudly here. The morning demands quiet respect. You take your seat near the hearth again, the same place where the night before had been filled with laughter and song. Now it's calm, just the steady crackle of the fire and the occasional clatter of dishes from the kitchen. The innkeeper's wife brings you a plate of porridge and a slice of bread, still warm from the oven. The steam rises in slow, lazy curls, and you realize how good it feels simply to sit and eat in silence. Outside, the light brightens. Through the small window, you can see the lane turning gold, the puddles drying, the village returning to its rhythm. The same merchants from yesterday begin to pass, their carts rumbling softly, their voices carrying low and calm. You finish your meal and thank the innkeeper quietly. He nods again, setting a hand briefly on your shoulder as you stand, a gesture that feels like both farewell and blessing. You step outside and the cool air greets you fully this time, clear and crisp. The tavern door closes behind you with a soft thud, the sound echoing faintly before fading into the morning hum. The road stretches ahead, still damp, still glistening, winding gently between the houses. The sky is brighter now, but the light is soft, filtered through a thin veil of mist that clings to the fields beyond. You start walking, your boots making quiet marks in the dirt. The town feels alive again, but never rushed. A blacksmith's hammer rings faintly in the distance, the rhythm steady and sure. A dog trots past, its fur matted from the rain, its tail wagging as if the day itself has welcomed it. You pass the baker's shop, the same scent that woke you earlier, now richer, warmer. Loaves cool on wooden racks near the door, and he waves as you go by, flour dusting his sleeves like snow. You wave back, smiling, though neither of you speaks. The road leads you once again toward the fields, the open world waiting just beyond the last cottage. You glance back once at the tavern. The Boar's Rest looks smaller now in the morning light, humble and quiet, yet it carries the weight of 1,000 stories behind its walls. Smoke curls from the chimney, drifting into the clear sky. You realize, as you walk farther, that this place, like so many others, exists in the gentle rhythm between arrival and departure, between waking and sleep, between one life and the next. The path ahead gleams faintly with dew. The birds begin to sing again, soft at first, then louder, until the air feels full of their music. The sound of your footsteps blends with theirs, and for a moment, everything feels perfectly balanced. The warmth left behind, the cool waiting ahead. The tavern fades from sight, but not from memory. You carry it with you, like the echo of a song that never truly ends. The world opens wide before you, calm and endless, washed clean by the night and reborn in the light of a new day. The road unfolds before you like a ribbon of pale earth, winding between hedgerows, heavy with dew. Each step presses softly into the damp soil, leaving shallow prints that fade almost as soon as they're made. The village behind you is already shrinking into memory, the gentle hum of its morning life fading into the still air. You walk without hurry, your breath visible in the cool dawn light. The sky stretches vast and open, streaked with the faint pink of early sun and the last gray threads of mist. Birds lift from the trees in sudden bursts, their wings flashing in the light, and settle again in the fields, their songs echoing faintly. The land here feels timeless, as if it has been waiting for travelers since the first road was ever laid. You pass a wooden signpost, its letters worn smooth by years of rain and wind, pointing toward names half forgotten. A small brook cuts across your path, its water glinting clear and silver as it tumbles over stones. You pause to drink, kneeling at the edge, where moss grows thick and cold. The water tastes of earth and air and distance. When you stand again, the road ahead feels like a story that has yet to be told. You walk on, the sound of your boots mixing with the quiet rhythm of the morning, a steady, meditative beat. The fields open wide now, dotted with low cottages and small clusters of trees. Far off, a shepherd moves slowly among his flock, his figure little more than a shadow against the rising light. The soft bleating of sheep drifts faintly on the breeze. You raise a hand in greeting as you pass, and though he may not see it, the gesture feels right, a shared moment in a world vast and slow. Ahead, the path rises gently toward a low hill, and at its crest, you can see a monastery standing silent and still, its stone walls catching the sun. The bells begin to ring, not loud, but deep and resonant, their sound rolling across the fields like waves. Each toll lingers, fading into the open air before the next follows, steady and sure. You stop to listen. The bells are not calling for you, yet somehow their sound fills you with calm, a reminder of the countless mornings, just like this, that have passed before. A cart rattles by on the road, pulled by a pair of oxen, their breath misting in the chill. The driver nods in passing, his face lined and quiet, his eyes half hidden beneath a worn hood. The cart creaks softly, carrying barrels bound in rope and straw. You step aside as it passes, feeling the faint vibration of its weight through the ground. When it's gone, silence returns, as if the land itself has drawn a slow, deep breath. A little farther on, you find a grove of trees, oaks and birches, their leaves trembling faintly in the morning air. The path narrows here, the ground carpeted with fallen leaves that rustle underfoot. You slow your pace, the quiet of the forest wrapping around you like a cloak. Sunlight filters through the branches in long, golden shafts, painting the ground with shifting patterns. You can hear the faint buzz of insects waking in the warmth, the distant tapping of a woodpecker somewhere unseen. There's a smell of damp earth, of green things and time. It feels ancient, this place, untouched and eternal. You reach out to touch the bark of a tree, rough, solid, cold to the touch, and you think of how many travelers before you have passed this same way, perhaps pausing here to feel the same stillness. When you emerge from the grove, the land opens once more. The monastery stands closer now, its walls pale against the brightening sky. Smoke curls from a small chimney near the kitchen quarters, and you can just make out figures moving in the garden beyond the wall. Monks bent quietly over rows of herbs, their brown robes brushing the earth. You don't call out or approach. You simply watch from the road. The chant of morning prayer carries faintly through the air, low and rhythmic, blending with the sound of the wind in the grass. For a moment, time seems to stop. The world becomes one long breath, calm, even, endless. You move on again, the monastery fading slowly behind you. The path turns toward a stretch of meadow, where wildflowers bloom in gentle clusters, yellow, white, and deep blue. Bees drift from one to the next, their hum steady and soft. You pass a fallen log and sit for a moment, resting your feet. The sun has risen higher now, warm against your shoulders, and you close your eyes. The smell of grass and flowers and distant smoke fills your senses. It feels as though you could stay here forever, suspended in this small, perfect morning. But eventually, the road calls again. You rise, brush the dust from your hands, and begin walking once more. Ahead, the path curves toward the horizon, vanishing into a line of distant trees. Somewhere beyond them, there will be another village, another tavern, another quiet place waiting. The day stretches long before you, slow, golden, and full of the soft music of a world at peace. The sun has climbed higher now, spilling its warmth across the road, and the faint morning mist has long since lifted into the pale blue of day. The path narrows here, winding through tall grasses and low hills that seem to rise and fall like the slow breathing of the earth itself. The sound of your steps changes, no longer the soft press of mud, but the dry crunch of soil and stone. A warm breeze moves across the fields, carrying with it the scent of wild thyme and dust. You walk without speaking, without purpose, beyond the motion itself, the rhythm of your body sinking to the pulse of the world around you. It's a quiet kind of peace, the sort that comes only after many miles ahead. You see the shape of a wooden post standing where two paths meet, the old crossroads that travelers have passed for centuries. The sign that once pointed toward distant towns has long since faded, its letters carved deep but worn smooth by rain and time. Near it stands a small stone shrine, half covered in ivy, its base surrounded by scattered offerings, a bundle of herbs, a smooth pebble, a scrap of cloth tied to a branch. These are gifts for no one and everyone left by those who came before, perhaps for luck or gratitude or the faint hope of being remembered. You stop here, feeling the stillness gather around you. The air is different at crossroads, heavy, watchful, alive with the faint hum of possibilities. Somewhere in the distance, a crow calls, its cry sharp and lonely against the sky. You approach the shrine, tracing a finger along the rough stone. The carving upon it is simple, a worn cross, a faint symbol of faith or blessing. There are burn marks along its base, where candles once stood, long since melted into tiny puddles of wax. You kneel for a moment, not to pray exactly, but to breathe. The wind stirs the tall grass, whispering through it like the murmur of an old voice. And for a fleeting instant, you can almost hear the echoes of those who stood here before you, the merchants, the pilgrims, the soldiers returning from war. Their footsteps still seem to linger, faint as memory etched into the earth. As you stand again, a flicker of movement catches your eye. A small hut tucked away at the edge of the woods, almost invisible beneath the shade of its own roof. Smoke rises thinly from a hole in the top. You follow the narrow track leading toward it, your curiosity quiet but steady. The air cools as you enter the shade, the sunlight breaking into dappled fragments on the ground. When you reach the hut, you find it built from rough logs, patched with clay and straw. Outside sits an old man, cross-legged, his robe little more than a patchwork of faded cloth. His beard falls to his chest, and his eyes, though lined with age, are bright and calm. He looks up as you approach, not startled, but as though he's been expecting you. "The road is long," he says simply, his voice rough but gentle. You nod, unsure of what to reply. He gestures for you to sit beside him on a flat stone. The air here smells of wood smoke and pine, and somewhere nearby, water trickles softly over rock. For a time, you both sit in silence, watching the light shift across the clearing. The hermit's hut is surrounded by small things, a few clay bowls, a bundle of herbs drying on a string, a walking stick carved with patterns that spiral like vines. People pass here, he says, after a while. Some stop, some don't. All of them carry something they can't quite name. His words fall slowly, like pebbles dropped into still water. You glance toward the crossroads, visible through the trees. What do they leave behind, you ask? The old man smiles faintly, his eyes narrowing in the light. Mostly nothing, he says, but sometimes a little peace. His gaze drifts toward the shrine. The road teaches, if you walk it long enough, teaches patience, teaches how to listen. You sit with his words, letting them sink into the quiet. The breeze stirs again, and for a moment, you can hear the faint chime of something metallic, perhaps a charm hung from the branches above. It tinkles softly, like a lullaby for the wind. The old man stands, stretching slowly, and picks up a clay cup from beside him. He fills it with water from a small jug and offers it to you. You drink. It's cool and clean, tasting faintly of stone. When you hand it back, he nods once, as if to mark some unspoken understanding. The moment feels sacred, though no prayers are said. You thank him quietly, and he only smiles again, settling back into his place as though the conversation were never interrupted. When you turn to leave, he does not stop you. The road awaits, after all. As you step out from the shade, the sunlight feels warmer than before. The crossroads stand silent behind you, the shrine glowing faintly in the gold of late afternoon. You glance back once and see the hermit watching you still, a calm figure against the trees, small and timeless. Then he fades into distance, into memory. You walk on the path ahead, shimmering in the sun, each step carrying you farther, but never away, always toward something quiet, something eternal. The afternoon sun hangs heavy in the sky, warm and unblinking, casting long ribbons of gold across the land. The world feels suspended in that strange stillness that comes after the morning's motion, as though even the wind has grown tired and decided to rest. The road stretches out before you in a quiet line of pale dust, shimmering faintly with heat. Every step feels softer now, your shadow stretching long behind you, slow and unhurried. The sounds of the world have melted into one continuous hum, the faint whisper of distant insects, the lazy rustle of wheat swaying on the hillsides, the soft creak of the leather strap across your shoulder. There's a kind of peace in this monotony, a rhythm that quiets the mind. You pass through open fields where the grass glows like copper in the sun, the scent of dry earth rising with each gust of air. A few butterflies drift lazily across your path, their wings flashing pale yellow and white. In the far distance, a bell tolls, perhaps, from a church in some unseen village, the sound softened by distance until it feels like a heartbeat beneath the sky. You don't count the hours anymore. The day flows like a river, each moment indistinguishable from the last. At the crest of a hill, you pause to look back. The horizon stretches endlessly, the monastery now just a pale memory against the haze. The road behind seems to vanish into the shimmer of light. Ahead, a flock of birds moves like smoke above the fields, shifting shape without sound. The air is warm against your skin, dry and faintly sweet. Sweat beads along your neck, and your clothes cling lightly to you, dusted with the fine grit of the road. But none of it feels uncomfortable. It's simply part of the world, the same as breathing, as walking, as being. You find a small tree by the roadside and sit beneath it, grateful for the patch of shade. The bark is rough against your back, grounding you. You close your eyes, and the hum of the day deepens. Somewhere nearby, a cricket chirps steadily, its rhythm so constant it begins to blend into the pulse of your thoughts. The sunlight flickers gently through the leaves above, painting dappled shapes on your hands and legs. Time loosens its hold. Minutes slide into one another until you can't tell if you've sat for a moment or an hour. The smell of the grass around you grows stronger, mixed with the faint sweetness of wildflowers and the distant smoke of some unseen hearth. You breathe slowly, deeply, letting the stillness sink into your bones. For a brief, weightless moment, you feel as though you've left the world entirely, as though you've become part of the land itself. Another sound in the quiet chorus of the afternoon. When you finally stand, your limbs feel light, almost reluctant to move. The road welcomes you again, and you continue walking. The sun has begun its slow descent now, tilting the light into softer shades of gold and amber. The shadows stretch long across the path, and the fields take on a deeper hue. You pass an abandoned cottage, half buried in ivy, its roof sagging, its doorway open to the wind. A single wooden wheel lies nearby, cracked and half sunk in the earth. You stop for a moment, peering inside. Dust motes dance in the beams of sunlight, slanting through broken boards. A clay jug sits on a shelf, a fragment of someone's forgotten life. It's quiet here, but not empty. The air feels thick with memory, as though the house itself remembers laughter, warmth, the soft clatter of bowls on a wooden table. You step back outside, feeling a small ache in your chest. Not sadness, exactly, but the strange tenderness that comes from witnessing what time leaves behind. The road continues, winding through low hills that glow like bronze in the late light. You pass a field of tall sunflowers, their faces tilted toward the fading sun. The breeze moves through them with a sound like the hush of waves. For a moment, you stop and watch, mesmerized by the rhythm of it all, each flower swaying in slow unison, as if listening to some silent song. The sky above has deepened into a soft, luminous blue, and a single hawk circles high overhead, its wings catching the last light. The day begins to soften around the edges. The air cools just slightly, carrying with it the faint promise of evening. In the distance, you see a small wooden bridge crossing a narrow stream, the water glinting in the golden light. When you reach it, you pause halfway across. The stream murmurs below, gentle and constant, its surface broken by drifting leaves. You lean on the railing, feeling the worn smoothness of the wood beneath your palms. The reflection of the sun shimmers in the water, fractured into 1,000 tiny sparks. It's beautiful in its simplicity, the kind of beauty that exists without needing to be seen. You stay there for a while, watching, breathing, existing. The road stretches on beyond the bridge, vanishing into the trees that mark the beginning of another forest. The shadows there are deep and cool, a promise of rest after the long heat of the day. You take one last look at the open fields, the vast sky, the golden world behind you. Then, with a quiet heart, you step into the shade, leaving the sunlight to fade behind you like the closing notes of a song that has played since the dawn. The day has begun to die, though not abruptly, it fades the way a candle burns low, quietly, gracefully, leaving behind the faintest glow. The air cools with each step you take, the last warmth of the sun slipping away like a retreating tide. Ahead, the forest rises dark and deep, its edge wrapped in the soft haze of dusk. The road that led through sunlight now passes into shadow, and as you walk, the colors of the world begin to change. Gold becomes gray, blue deepens into indigo, and the first stars tremble faintly above the horizon. The sound of the world softens too. The chirping of crickets begins to replace the hum of day, and far away, an owl gives its first call of evening. The wind that brushes your face carries with it the scent of pine and damp earth, cool and clean. You pause for a moment before the forest's edge, looking back one last time at the open fields. They glow faintly still, bathed in the dying light, as if remembering the sun. The road behind you gleams like a pale ribbon through the darkening land. Then you turn forward again, and the shadows welcome you in. The forest is not silent, far from it, but its sounds are hushed, layered, alive in subtle ways. The creak of branches, the sigh of leaves, the distant murmur of a stream hidden somewhere beyond sight. The air here feels thicker, touched with the faint sweetness of moss and the sharpness of bark. You walk slowly, your boots muffled by the blanket of fallen leaves that carpet the ground. The light fades further until it filters through the trees in thin, silver threads. It feels as though you've stepped not just into another place, but another time, one where the world moves at a different rhythm, slower, quieter, more ancient. You can see shapes along the path, the gnarled roots that twist like sleeping creatures, the half-rotted stump covered in mushrooms that glow faintly in the dimness. The forest smells of rain, though the sky is clear, and the air hums faintly with life unseen. A small fox crosses the path ahead, its fur catching a flash of fading light before it disappears into the undergrowth. Somewhere nearby, water trickles, soft, persistent, like a whispered memory. You follow the sound until you come upon a narrow brook, winding lazily between the trees. Its surface mirrors the last colors of twilight, violet, silver, and faint gold. You kneel beside it, dipping your fingers into the cold current, feeling it rush lightly against your skin. The chill travels through you, steadying your breath. For a while, you sit by the water, listening. The forest's voice deepens as night approaches, each sound distinct yet part of one vast harmony. The whisper of wind through high branches, the flutter of wings overhead, the quiet pulse of the stream. You feel small here, but not in a way that frightens you. Rather, it is the kind of smallness that brings peace, the knowledge that you belong to something infinitely larger, something that was here long before you and will remain long after. The first true darkness settles, and with it comes the soft shimmer of fireflies rising from the grass. They blink like scattered stars, their tiny lights drifting in slow, dreamlike motion. The forest seems to breathe with them, each flicker echoing the heartbeat of the night itself. You rise and begin walking again, the faint glow guiding your steps. The path narrows now, winding between tall trunks that rise like pillars in some ancient cathedral. The canopy above has nearly closed, and the sky peeks through only in small, trembling fragments of silver. You can smell wood smoke, faint, distant, carried on the air from somewhere deeper in the woods. Perhaps another traveler's fire, or maybe a hunter's camp. The thought brings a sense of quiet company, even though you see no one. The loneliness of the road has softened into solitude, gentle, familiar, almost comforting. You find a fallen tree beside the path and sit again, resting your back against its cool bark. The forest stretches endlessly before you, fading into shadow. You watch as the stars grow brighter between the branches, until it feels as though you're sitting beneath a ceiling of distant fires. The moon begins to rise pale and round, casting soft silver light through the leaves. It spills across your hands, your boots, the path ahead, turning everything into shades of dream. You close your eyes for a moment and listen to the silence, not empty, but full, breathing, alive. Somewhere, a nightbird sings a slow, plaintive song, its notes echoing faintly through the trees. The melody carries with it something eternal, the sound of all the nights that have ever been, and all the travelers who have ever passed beneath these same stars. You think of them now, of the countless footsteps that once pressed this path, of the lives that flickered and faded like these fireflies. The forest feels like their memory, their rest, their peace. You take a deep breath, the cool air filling your lungs, and open your eyes again. The moonlight glows on the brook, the path gleams faintly like a thread of glass, and your heart feels still. The world is quiet, and you are part of it, no longer walking through it, but within it, as though the forest has accepted you, drawn you into its ancient rhythm. You rise once more, stepping into the silver dark, the forest unfolding around you like a slow dream, endless and calm. You notice it first as a faint shimmer between the trees, not bright, not near, but unmistakably there, the golden pulse of firelight. It wavers softly in the darkness, a heartbeat of warmth against the cool, silver night. Drawn to it, you follow the winding path as it narrows through the forest, your boots whispering over moss and fallen leaves. The scent of smoke reaches you before the sound does, wood burning, slow and clean, mingled with something savory, like stew simmering in a pot. Then comes the faint murmur of voices, low, steady, unhurried, human. The sound fills the forest in a way that feels almost holy after so much silence. When you emerge from the trees, you find them, 3 travelers gathered around a small fire at the edge of a clearing. Their cloaks are worn, their faces lined, but their laughter rises gently into the night like sparks. A pot hangs above the flames, steam curling lazily upward. One of them, a woman with pale hair bound in a simple braid, glances up and meets your eyes. There's no surprise there, only calm recognition, as though she had expected you all along. Another wanderer, she says softly, her voice carrying the warmth of both welcome and understanding. You nod, and she gestures toward the fire. The others make space, and you lower yourself onto a patch of grass near the flames. The warmth seeps into your bones, chasing away the chill of the forest. For a long moment, no one speaks. The fire crackles quietly, the logs shifting and sighing as they burn. The smell of stew fills the air, onions, herbs, and the faint sweetness of grain. The woman ladles some into a wooden bowl and hands it to you. You take it gratefully, feeling the rough texture of the bowl's surface, the rising steam against your face. The first bite is simple but rich, the kind of food that feels alive after a long day's road. Around the fire, the others eat in the same slow, contented silence. There is comfort here, not in words, but in presence. After a while, one of the men speaks. His voice is deep, carrying the accent of distant hills. "The forest's kind tonight," he says, staring into the flames. "Last week, the wind howled so hard, I thought the trees would tear themselves apart." The others nod, and the conversation drifts into quiet stories of storms weathered, of old roads taken, of names half forgotten. You listen, the voices mingling with the fire's soft music. The woman begins to hum, low and tuneless, but it fits the rhythm of the night perfectly. Her song is neither happy nor sad, just the sound of a life moving gently through time. As the stories fade, silence returns, but it feels different now, shared, not empty. You look up, and the sky above the clearing has opened wide. The moon hangs high and bright, framed by the black lace of tree branches. The stars shimmer like frost scattered across dark velvet. You can hear the forest breathing again, but now it seems to echo the warmth of the fire, not the cold beyond. The man with the deep voice pokes at the embers with a stick. "Strange," he murmurs, "how fire makes strangers into family." The others nod, and you find yourself agreeing silently. For in this simple circle of light, surrounded by endless darkness, you feel a kind of belonging that has nothing to do with names or origins. The woman passes you a small cup carved from horn. "Mead," she says. "It's sweet and rough, burning slightly as it goes down, and the warmth spreads quickly through your chest. The flames flicker higher, the logs settling with a soft hiss. A spark drifts up and disappears into the night, and for a moment you imagine it as a tiny star finding its way home." One of the travelers begins to tell another story, not loudly, but with the measured calm of someone who has repeated it many times. It's a tale of an old knight who walked these same woods 100 years ago, seeking peace after battle. They say his spirit still lingers, not haunting, just walking, keeping to the roads he once patrolled. The others listen without fear, nodding slowly as though they've heard similar tales before. You realize that in this world, the line between the living and the remembered is thin, blurred by the years and the rhythm of stories. The fire pops, sending a wave of sparks into the air. The woman tosses another log onto the flames, and for a brief moment, the clearing glows, bright faces illuminated, eyes reflecting the dance of light. Then the fire settles again, quieter, gentler. You lean back against your pack, the ground cool beneath you, and close your eyes. The voices around you fade into a kind of lullaby, the rise and fall of speech, the murmur of wind through branches, the occasional crackle of wood. The warmth of the fire and the hum of company blend together, pulling you toward sleep. Somewhere in the distance, an owl calls again, its voice deep and slow. The woman's humming returns, softer now, almost a whisper. You drift between waking and dream, the world dissolving into sound and warmth. The firelight flickers through your closed eyelids, like the pulse of memory itself. You think of all the nights before, all the travelers who have sat by their own fires, telling their own quiet stories beneath this same unchanging sky. The thought is comforting. The night is vast, but you are not alone in it. As sleep pulls you deeper, the last thing you hear is the crackle of fire and the soft sigh of the forest, one endless breath shared by all who have ever crossed this quiet world. The night has deepened, though you can no longer tell how long it's been since the fire first caught flame. The air has cooled, soft and silver with moonlight, and the forest now feels more like a dream than a place. The travelers beside you have drifted into silence, some already asleep, their faces calm in the glow of the dying embers. The woman's soft humming has faded, replaced by the slow rhythm of breathing, a kind of music older than words. You lie back on your cloak, the ground cool beneath you, and gaze up through the gaps in the canopy. The stars are brighter here than you've ever seen them, endless and sharp, like pinpricks in a dark veil. Each one feels alive, trembling faintly, as though whispering across the ages. Somewhere beyond sight, the faint Milky Way arches above the world like a frozen river of light. You take a slow breath. The air smells of wood smoke, pine, and faint sweetness, the last traces of stew cooling near the fire. The crackle of the last log reminds you of faraway hearths, of nights when people gathered together simply because warmth and presence were all they had. You close your eyes, and the darkness behind your lids glows faintly red from the firelight. The warmth touches your skin, the cool breeze brushes your face, and between the two, your mind begins to drift, somewhere between now and long ago. You imagine the road you've walked today, the tavern's noisy glow, the creak of wooden benches, the laughter that rose and fell like waves on a quiet sea. You remember the music, the smell of ale and smoke, and the soft faces of strangers whose names you'll never know. And then the images shift. You see cobbled streets glistening with rain, the glint of lanterns swaying in the wind, the stone walls of forgotten towns, the endless fields that shimmer beneath the moon. It's all one long road now, one that stretches not through space, but through memory. Every footstep ever taken, every fire ever lit, every quiet moment of rest beneath the stars, they all belong to this same journey. You hear, faintly, the laughter from the tavern again, distant but alive, as if carried on the night air. Then, for a moment, the forest fades completely, replaced by that golden glow, the hum of voices, the creak of tankards, the warmth of company. You're there again, standing by the wooden door as it swings open, the sound of the lute echoing across the smoky room. It feels as real as breathing, the warmth on your face, the light flickering across the old beams, the smell of roasted meat, all of it returns for just a heartbeat. But when you blink, it's gone, replaced once more by the calm forest night. The fire beside you sighs and collapses inward, sparks drifting upward like tiny souls escaping into the dark. The embers glow faintly, breathing their last breaths of light. You roll onto your side, the ground uneven but somehow comforting. The moss beneath you feels soft, and the distant hoot of an owl echoes through the trees. Everything is still. The woman stirs slightly, pulling her cloak tighter, and one of the men mumbles something half-dreamed before sinking back into quiet sleep. You realize you are no longer awake in the usual sense. The world is still there, but distant now, like something remembered rather than seen. Your thoughts slow. The sounds of the forest blur together. The crackle of embers, the rustle of leaves, the faint whisper of night insects. The air seems to hum softly, a single endless note that wraps around you like a lullaby. The weight of your body fades. Your limbs grow heavy, and your breathing deepens until it matches the rhythm of the world itself. The sky above seems to lean closer, the stars growing brighter, until they no longer feel like distant suns, but like quiet guardians keeping watch over all who sleep beneath them. You think of all the travelers before you, those who walked strange roads, who sat beside forgotten fires, who looked up at this same unchanging sky. Time folds softly around the thought. You are them, and they are you, one endless chain of wanderers, resting beneath the same stars, listening to the same eternal silence between the flames. The forest exhales once more. The fire gives one final pop, then settles into glowing ash. The world narrows gently, folding into the rhythm of your heartbeat. And then, in the hush that follows, sleep comes slow, deep, and absolute. The kind of sleep that doesn't belong to a single night, but 2 centuries. The kind of rest that feels like falling backward through time itself. You are no longer a traveler, no longer a guest in the medieval world. You are part of it now, part of its dust, its air, its endless quiet. The road fades, the forest fades. Only the stars remain, watching softly as they always have, waiting for the next dream to begin.